Hello everyone, welcome back. Hope you're doing well. In today's video we have a Xbox Series X which has no video output. So as I say, when you plug this Xbox Series X in, it doesn't actually display anything out of the HDMI port. I have tested it and it is actually no display. Powers on fine, stays powered on, but just no video output. Looking at the HDMI ports, it does look a little bit loose, right? So normally you can tell if it's going to be an HDMI issue, right? If you wiggle that, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, it does look a little bit loose. So it has been opened before, so let's see what surprises we find inside. But let's get it opened and see if we can get it repaired. So as you probably saw right at the end of the time lapse there, the HDMI port just fell off, right? So there's obviously something, well, someone's tried to replace it, I believe, because there was a little strip of solder wire there as well. And yeah, someone's obviously already tried to repair it. You can see down here. So what I'm going to do is get under the microscope, right? And we'll clean up all the pads, and then we'll show you a way of replacing the HDMI port. So here we are under the microscope, and then obviously you can see this is where the HDMI port normally is. I think the person before has tried to replace it, but they just haven't had enough heat on their heat gun, right? So it looks like they've successfully been able to remove an old HDMI port, and then they've heated up the area, but whatever heat gun they've used, it's not been hot enough because the solder didn't flow before they attempted to put their port in. You can see all the solder along here that they've used to try and hold it down on the actual port itself. Right, so what we're going to do, we are going to come in, we're going to heat up this area, and we're going to remove all of this solder. First of all, we're going to add some leaded solder, right? It's just to help remove this old solder, because I don't know what type of solder it is, and it's best to get it all completely cleaned off. We'll flip the board over and we'll clean up this side as well. All right, so first we're going to come in just with a little bit of heat with a heat gun and just warm up the whole area. All right, all I'm doing is a bit of heat. And then flip the board over, bit of heat to the rear side of the board. Then come in with some leaded solder. this side we're going to add a little bit of flux, and then leaded solder all over the pins and pads. Now, why this is important for this example, going by the smell that's coming off the board, I think whoever tried to repair this previously has actually used super glue. Right, so there's a bit of super glue on here. So what I want to do is just make sure it all clears off properly. Right, so I'm adding a load of leaded solder. That will clean that all out. You can actually see on this side how dark it's got from the actual glue that's melting. Okay, then I'm going to come back in with more heat again. And then come in with a solder sucker. And try to remove all the solder that's on there. Let's flip the board. Do the same this side. We're going to add a little bit more leaded solder to this side as well. Come in with the heat gun again. going to flip it around again. We're going to pull out the solder from this side because it's being a bit stubborn. Just add a little bit of leaded this side as well. So there you go, you can see now all of that old solder that was in those holes, those mounting holes, has now been removed. That was quite stubborn. I don't know if someone had used a different type of solder in there, but normally the manufacturer's solder is a little bit easier than that to get out. But all you simply do is what you saw me do, right? Is just keep adding leaded solder, right? And then keep the area nice and warm, and then just keep on using your solder sucker. Some people use wick, right? That wick wouldn't have worked here because that solder was really stubborn, and these boards on these Xbox Series X is really thick. So in this case, wick wouldn't have used. You can use wick normally, but as I say, I'm not too sure what type of solder that was in there because that wasn't factory solder. Anyhow, moving on. So what we need to do is tin up these pads. Also tin up around here, which is the holding pads as well. They'd literally just give the HDMI ports a little bit more support. They've got no data going through these, right? It just literally goes to ground, just secures the HDMI ports to the PCB a little bit more. So we're going to tin all of these up and then add some solder to all of the holes again. And then we'll drop the HDMI port in. There is a few ways of doing this, right? I do use a method. Now we've got all of the solder taken out of them, we can just drop an HDMI port in and just warm up these pads and then just solder it that way. That's a easy way to do it if you're pretty new to soldering. But there's multiple ways of doing it, right? So what I think we'll do in this case is we'll actually fill up the holes with solder, right? And then we will drop the motherboard in, the HDMI ports in. And the reason we do that on the Xbox Series X is because of these pads along here. You need to keep them nice and warm when you drop the port in. Right, so just going to put a little bit of flux along here. And then I am going to come in with leaded solder, which is the most important thing to remember. Make sure you use leaded solder for this. We're going to tin up our pads along here, simple as that. Right, to make sure there's no bridges, and then come in and then just add some solder to each of the mounting holes. Don't need loads because we can top it up later. Seems a bit funny that we're adding solder to a place where we've just taken out solder, but there is the reason for that is because I say that other solder was a little bit, don't know, weird. Right, let's tin up these as well along here, a nice leaded solder. Right, so that's pretty much the area prepped. Right, so all we need to do now is get our new port, warm up the area, and just drop the port in. And the easiest way to do that is lift up the board and do it, right? So you've got a bit of space underneath the board to warm the PCB up, motherboard up from underneath, right? To do it, so you don't warm it up from the top, warm it up from the underneath. So I'll just hang it off the edge of my desk and we'll do that now. Right, so with the board over the side of the desk now, what we're going to do, we're going to come in with our hot air gun. This time we're going to remove the nozzle. So if you've got a hot air gun with a nozzle, remove it. Put your heat gun underneath, like so, and then just start warming up the whole area. All right, so you literally just keep the hot air gun moving, and then eventually when you see the solder starts to melt, you'll know it's time to start putting in the HDMI ports. So warming up the whole area. It does take a while because these boards are very thick on the Xboxes. There you go, starting to melt that side. Now that side's starting to go. Just need to move it over a little bit. Right, that's that cleaned up. It's the best I can get it, right? Unfortunately, there's a load of residue super glue all over the board. So I've tried my best to clean up what I can, but there's still quite a bit of the residue from the super glue on there. Let's just check all the pins are solid, which they should be. Yep, good. Yep, all solid, perfect. And then on the other side of the board, that's nice and clean now. Again, there's a bit of residue super glue, but I can't really get all of it off, but I've got most of it off. Right, so let's get it put back together and give everything a test. Right, so there we go, everything put back together. Now let's give it a little bit of power. Plug in a HDMI cable and see if we get a signal. So turn it on. There we go, powering up, which is good. Let's wait a few seconds, see if we get anything on the screen. Yes, we do, look at that, perfect. So we'll leave that one to boot up. Perfect. So thanks very much for watching the video. Really do appreciate your view. If you did find it useful, please consider giving us a thumbs up. It really does help us out. We're posting more and more videos every week now to help you out on showing you how to fix PlayStation 5 or Xboxes, and sometimes even a Nintendo Switch. So thanks very much for your view. Really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. See you again soon.